Part 1. The Birth of the Horde. In the endless grasslands of Central Asia, where the horizon meets the sky, the wind once carried the sound of hooves, not of war but of survival. This was the land of the nomads, the Mongols. They were not yet an empire, not yet a force that would shake the world. Just scattered tribes living under the open sky, moving with their herds guided by the seasons and the stars. Their lives were harsh. Winters were brutal, summers were dry. Every day was a test of endurance, but it was this very struggle that forged them into something different, disciplined, alert and united by instinct rather than laws. They had no cities, no stone monuments, but they had something stronger, unity through necessity. Out here on the steppe, weakness meant death, and from this reality, the Mongol spirit was born. Part 2. Forged by the steppe. From childhood, a Mongol learned one thing above all, the bond between man and horse. Before they could walk, they could ride. Before they could read, they could shoot an arrow. They didn't see horses as animals. They were extensions of themselves. Together they became one being, fast, precise, unstoppable. In the open steppe, this bond was survival. A Mongol rider could travel 100 kilometers a day, sleep in the saddle, and live off fermented milk and dried meat for weeks. This endurance, this adaptability, would soon become their greatest weapon. But they didn't know it yet, because before they could conquer the world, they would first have to conquer themselves and find a leader strong enough to unite them all. Part 3. The Rise of Genghis Khan. His name was Temujin. Born into hardship, betrayed by his tribe, and left to die. He should have been forgotten like thousands of others before him. But Temujin refused to be forgotten. He rebuilt his following from nothing. Not through birthright, but through loyalty. He rewarded strength and punished betrayal. He gave power to those who earned it, not those who inherited it. Under his leadership, the tribes of the steppe began to unite. He created something unseen in the nomadic world, order. And when the time came, they gave him a new name, Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. In that moment, the steppe had found its voice, and the world would soon hear it. Part 4. The World Trembles. The Mongols didn't fight like anyone else. They didn't march in tight lines. They didn't rely on walls or castles. They moved. They struck fast, vanished faster, and returned when their enemies least expected. They turned chaos into strategy and fear into a weapon. Empires that had stood for centuries crumbled within years. Cities that once laughed at the barbarians burned to the ground. The Mongols crossed deserts, rivers, and mountains, reaching lands no steppe rider had ever seen. It wasn't just conquest. It was transformation. From the forests of Russia to the gates of China, the world began to realize this was not a horde. This was an unstoppable force guided by a single vision. Part 5. The Laws of the Steppe. But even the greatest power cannot last without order. And Genghis Khan understood that better than anyone. He wrote down a code, the yasa, a set of laws that governed everything from warfare to justice, from trade to religion. It was simple, strict, and absolute. The yasa demanded loyalty. It demanded discipline. But it also allowed freedom, freedom of faith, freedom of movement, freedom from corruption. It was not a law written in books, but in the hearts of his people. And as his empire expanded, so did the reach of his rules. From the Caspian Sea to the Great Wall, his name became a law in itself. Part 6. The Great Expansion. The Mongol Empire grew faster than any before it. Trade routes once dangerous became safe under their watch. Merchants could travel thousands of kilometers without fear. They built roads, postal systems, and communication networks, the veins of a living empire. Their influence reached Persia, the Middle East, China, and Eastern Europe. But not through destruction alone, through adaptation. They adopted technologies, scholars, and craftsmen from every culture they encountered. The Mongols didn't just conquer, they connected the world. For the first time in history, East met West in a vast system, held together by the riders of the steppe. Part 7. The fall begins. But nothing lasts forever. The same wind that carried them forward began to turn against them. After Genghis Khan's death, his empire was divided among his sons and grandsons. Each ruled a vast territory, but unity began to fade. Ambition replaced loyalty. Pride replaced purpose. The Mongols had conquered everything, except themselves. They were no longer one people, but many. And as the generations passed, the fire that had once united them began to fade into smoke. Part 8. The Fractured Empire. By the 14th century, the once mighty empire had splintered into separate khanates: the Golden Horde, the Ilkhanate, the Yuan dynasty. Each followed its own path, its own destiny. Some embraced foreign customs, others turned inward, clinging to the old ways. Trade routes shifted, enemies adapted. The Mongol name, once feared, began to dissolve into history. But what they left behind was undeniable: a world forever changed. Borders, trade, communication, everything carried the mark of the Mongol touch. Part 9. The Last Riders. Centuries later, when travelers crossed Mongolia, they still found traces of that ancient fire. A bow hanging in a yurt, a song sung by a herder under the stars. Her name whispered with pride: Genghis Khan. The empire was gone. But the spirit of the Mongol rider lived on, in the silence of the steppe, in the rhythm of the horse, in the wind that still never stops blowing. Part 10. Echoes of the Horde. Today, the Mongol Empire exists only in memory, and yet, in some way, it never ended, because its legacy is written not in books, but in the way the modern world connects. Trade, culture, communication, all trace back to that time when riders from the steppe linked continents together. The Mongols taught us something timeless: that even from the harshest lands, greatness can rise. That unity, discipline, and vision can shape the world. Empires fall, but their echoes never truly fade.